So, has PayPal ever just taken your money? If so, you're in the right place. This is a tactical guide to help you challenge them and get those funds back. We're going to focus on something PayPal calls loss recovery. That's the name they started using around mid 2022. You might know it by its old name, damages caused by acceptable use policy violation. Same thing, different label. First things first, let's make sure this guide is for you. Everything we're about to cover applies if your PayPal agreement is under Singapore law. And the great thing is, these arguments are solid across the board, whether you're in mediation, arbitration, or even if it goes all the way to court. So, if Singapore law is in your contract, stick around. It's pretty interesting how they just rebranded this fee. Calling it loss recovery definitely sounds a lot better, right? But don't let the fancy new name fool you. It's the exact same practice of taking your funds. The core problem hasn't changed one bit.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. We've got 5 sections. We'll start with what's really going on with these deductions. Then we'll get into how PayPal breaks its own rules. After that, we'll build your main legal argument, lay out a step-by-step plan, and wrap up with a little reality check.
All right, let's dive into section 1. We need to unpack what's actually happening when PayPal takes your money, because what they say and what they do can be two very different things. So if you read their policy, you'll see this specific number, a $2,500 per violation fee. But what people actually experience is something we call a balance sweep. Instead of just taking that specific amount, PayPal will often just confiscate the entire balance in the account, no matter how much is in there. It's just gone. And that brings us to a really critical part of your case, the double breach of contract. This is where we look at how PayPal often fails to follow its own promises, which is a huge deal. So here's the first part of it, the promise. When PayPal puts a limitation on your account, they send you an email. And that email is very clear. Your money is on a temporary hold, and you'll be able to withdraw it in 180 days. They set a crystal clear expectation. But then there's the reality. In so many cases, they just break that promise. They take the money way before the 180 days are up, and what makes it worse? They usually do it in total silence. You get no notification, no heads up, nothing. That's breach number 1. And breach number 2? The misleading conduct. They promise to get in touch with you after the hold with instructions on how to get your money out. But more often than not, that email, it never arrives. You're left waiting, you log in after 6 months expecting to see your money, and you're hit with a zero balance. Now, these actions aren't just bad customer service. They have a legal name. Under Singapore's Consumer Protection Act, making misleading claims about how long your money will be held is considered an unfair practice. And you know what else is? Deviating from your own rules. As we've just seen, PayPal often does both. Okay, so now that we've established they've broken their promises, what's your strongest legal move? Let's get right into the nuts and bolts of the argument you need to make. This is absolutely the heart of your legal case. You're not going to argue that the fee is illegal. The key phrase you need to use is unenforceable penalty. See, legitimate liquidated damages are a valid estimate of a potential loss, but a penalty is just there to punish you. And legally, it's void unless PayPal can prove they actually lost money because of you. And this whole argument rests on a really solid legal standard called the Dunlop test. It's the gold standard in Singapore, and it asks a very simple question. When the contract was made, was this fee a genuine attempt to estimate the potential loss from a violation? If the answer is no, then it's a penalty. Simple as that. And don't for a second think this is some kind of old, dusty law. The Singapore courts reconfirmed this exact strict test as recently as 2020. So the only question that really matters here is, did PayPal do the math and actually try to estimate a loss, or did they pretty much just pick a number out of a hat? And here's why their flat fee doesn't really hold up to that test. Think about it. They apply the same fixed sum, $2,500, to all kinds of different violations. We're talking everything from a tiny mistake to something much more serious. How can the damage be the exact same amount for such different issues? That right there is a classic sign of a penalty, not a real calculation. What's more, the law is very clear that a fee is unenforceable if it's extravagant and unconscionable compared to the biggest loss you could have possibly caused. The burden of proof is on PayPal to show their loss, but they almost never give you any evidence. No receipts, no itemized costs, nothing to justify the amount they took. This also raises a really serious question about their legal duties.
As a licensed payment services provider in Singapore, PayPal has what's called a fiduciary responsibility to protect customer money. Just sweeping an entire balance without proving any loss could be a direct conflict with their duties under the Payment Services Act. So if you follow the logic, it all leads to this. If the fee is an unenforceable penalty, then that part of the contract is legally void. That means PayPal has no legal right to keep your money. And by keeping it, they're being unjustly enriched, which means the law says they have to give it back.
Okay, so that's all the legal theory, but how do you actually use it? Let's switch gears and walk through a practical, step-by-step plan to turn this argument into action.
Your action plan really boils down to 3 main steps. 1. Send a formal notice of dispute to PayPal. 2. Escalate the issue to a group called FIDREC. And 3. Use all your evidence in the right way. All right, step 1. You have to put PayPal on notice, formally. You're going to send them a notice of dispute, and do it through both registered mail and email just to be safe. The most important part of this letter is that you demand they provide proof of their genuine pre-estimated loss. Make them do the work. Now, if you wait about 4 weeks and you either get no response or a response you're not happy with, it's time for step 2, escalate. You can file a claim online with FIDREC. That stands for the Financial Industry Disputes Resolution Center. It's a recognized body in Singapore, and it's an affordable, fair way to get someone to mediate. And what is your absolute best piece of evidence? It's every single email you have from PayPal that promises that 180-day hold. This is your smoking gun. It proves the double breach, and it shows, clear as day, how they just changed the rules from a temporary hold to a permanent confiscation without telling you.
Okay, last section. Before we wrap up, we need to have a quick reality check. It's really important to manage your expectations and understand what's possible here. Look, I have to be straight with you. This isn't a magic bullet for everyone. We know people who've used these exact arguments and gotten all their money back. But your chances are definitely highest if you didn't cause any actual financial damage, like a bunch of chargebacks or clear fraud. The law protects you from unfair penalties. It doesn't protect you from the consequences of causing real, provable losses.
But here's the main takeaway, the one thing you should remember. Under Singapore law, the burden of proof is on them, not you. PayPal has to prove that the money they took was a genuine estimate of a loss they actually suffered. If they can't show you the proof, then you have an incredibly powerful case that it's an unenforceable penalty, and those funds are rightfully yours.